Let me have a sip of my coffee.
Of course. Cheers.
Water. Oh, cheers, man. Cheers for coming on.
Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Uncommon Podcast. Today, we're sitting down with Krispy Kolt, and we are going to talk a little bit about how we met originally, how we actually became kind of friends just at this like rock party. And actually, I'm wearing that same crystal too,
man.
from that little rock house party. That was a crazy night, man. And I just really wanted to dive into you being a really, really young artist and your mindset around it. You have a really, really cool mindset. When we talked at the actual party, we really got along because I think that you have goals and ambitions that a lot of kids and even like a lot of people I talk to my age don't have. And it's not for a good or bad reason. It's just that they don't really think ahead at all. So it was really cool to sit down and talk with you. And I wanted to expand on that, man. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit how you got into DJing, found your art, and got into music.
All right. So, my dad, always growing up, was always like, my dad had me at 21 years old. So him and I were kind of like, him and I both were kind of just like around each other, always like, it was just me and him still is majority of my life. Yeah. So him and I are really close, and he would always have me in his front seat of his like Jeep, and we'd always be listening to, the album was, what was it called? It was by Chaos, and it was released in 2001, but I remember I can almost, like sing every single song off that album because him and I just listened to that on repeat. Yeah. So I kind of grew up for like the first 5 to 6 years of my life. I grew up on like old school hip hop, lots of Gangstar, Biggie's, not really like East Coast, West Coast. It's more like underground.
Cool.
Living Legends. Nice. Like that kind of old stuff. And then growing up, I kind of went into more like when I was around 10 years old, I was kind of going into like the Skrillex phase of like just being an angry little kid. But I wasn't like that. I wasn't like the emo kid. I was kind of like just angry sometimes. Yeah. And just like bang my head and like, and like punch my bed and stuff like that. I'd be like, yeah, Skrillex.
Yeah. Yo, man, I went through the same phase. Like that was in like grade 9, grade 10. Then,
so I went through that for a little bit. Went to my first music festival when I was 11. I went to Center Gravity.
How was that, man?
That was interesting because I've always really liked dancing. Yeah. And I've always been like, always have a groove. I always know where the beat is. So the first DJ I ever saw live was Matt the Alien at Center Gravity. And at that time, I was really into like Knife Party and Nero. And it just so happens that both of them were playing at that Center Gravity.
Damn, dude, that's a good combo.
I got to experience that with my dad too. So that was really interesting because I kind of got to see like, my dad's been going to Shambhala for about 15 years. Whoa. And he always talks about it. He always comes back. I always see like the dust on the car. I'm like, oh, where do they go? Like, just always wondering. And I kind of got to have like a little mini taste of that at Center Gravity. But as we all know, it's not like...
It's not Shambhala.
And it's not Shambhala. So
for sure.
I was pretty intrigued by that. Yeah. And then... that year he decided to paint there, and so we got like free tickets. We got to experience that, but then they kind of cut out the live art, so I didn't really get to go back to that. And then it just kind of started turning into like a drug fest, and it just kind of got to kind of a shit show. But
yeah, it gets pretty intense.
Yeah,
that's crazy, man. I want to ask you a couple questions before we move on too far about going to a festival at 11. So I went to Center of Gravity for the first time this last year, and I was like, it was intense. There was a lot of weird stuff, and like, man, it was a drug
naked
fest
16-year-olds. Sure. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's
a lot to handle.
I don't know, man. I gotta wear like fucking PG-13 glasses on all the time, dude. It's not what I want. I just came here for the music, bro. Yeah. But yeah, dude, it was pretty intense. So how was it being 11 and going to that festival? Talk about if it's been like big changes from now until when you were 11 as well.
Well, I just remember it kind of being just like a lot to handle. I remember it being just so loud, and I was like, I just can't even have a conversation. It was just being so loud. Yeah. And it was like really exciting because I've always really liked like listening to music and always just vibing to it. Mm-hmm. And for some reason I like wasn't like, I was really fun because there were so many people there like vibing to the music, but like I just didn't really like being around everyone being there. And then that was like the first year I went to that, and then I just stopped going for like about 3 to 4 years until I became of age. But for like my 11th Christmas, my dad decided to get me a TTM, like a Rain TTM 57SL DJ mixer.
Oh, what's that?
And then I got two Technique 1200s, and then I kind of taught myself how to like DJ in a sense. It was kind of just like dropping Skrillex into like more Skrillex and like things like that, like dubstep.
Yeah, dude.
And
Mix
all of
and
his
mash
buddy, and all of his buddies just kind of like gave me like a bunch of tunes to like go into, and then I kind of just like messed around with that for like 3 years. Didn't really take it very seriously. Went through a lot of needles, dragging on the records. That was like that was my dad didn't really like that very much.
I can
Because
imagine,
they're like
man.
$50 a piece, so
I was
he
gonna
didn't
say,
really like
that's
that very much.
expensive.
Yeah, so that was like a big struggle for that, and then I went into middle school and I kind of started taking it a little bit more seriously, and like started actually figuring out how to beat match and figuring out how to like actually like sing, like put the songs together so it sounds smooth like what an actual DJ does instead of just dropping it on.
Right.
And I started taking it more seriously, and then I created a SoundCloud account, and then started posting like my mixes onto there, and then that's like kind of like, and then that's kind of like where I was like kind of intrigued by it. I was like, oh, this is fun. Like, this sounds really cool. I can finally post it, share it to people, because it was kind of like I kept it to myself and like my dad and that and like my stepmom, and that's it. Kind of kept it to myself. But grade 9, I remember my first DJ name was like was Colt 45, and I was it was everyone in my middle school, like they knew I would post it, and I got like called all the names in the book. I was like, oh man, this sucks. I don't even want to do this anymore. Like people are calling me like iPod button pushers, and just like I just got ripped upon.
That's how it goes.
I kind of just my dad's always been like just him always doing art.
Yeah.
And I kind of just like, he just said, just ignore it. Just keep doing what you want to do. And I was like, all right. But I kind of didn't really fit in the whole lot. So I kind of wanted to fit in. And they're like, yeah, like come vape, come do this. Like, don't do the DJing. Don't do that. Like come party. And I'm like, I actually didn't even go to my first party until I was like grade 11. But I was kind of scared. I've always been scared to ask to do things because I feel like my dad's gonna be ashamed of that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, like grade 9 was like a really tough time, and grade 10 going into my first year into high school was a really tough time, like because it's my passion. Like I have like a real drive to do it, but it was like really tough for me to stick with it when getting like verbally assaulted by like so many kids.
Yeah. Man, like junior high and high school is fucking rough for that, dude.
It's atrocious.
Yeah, like even I'm glad that I can still relate to that, because I've been out of high school for about 4 years now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like that long, but there's a lot of things that have changed. But like the one thing for sure is you get attacked if you say that you like anything. Like I was very much in the same situation. Like my mom raised me from the majority of like my birth and stuff, and then my stepdad came in later. But when I was in junior high and high school, like grade 9, grade 10 for me, I like started to find out that I wasn't an athlete, and that I like didn't really want to do all the things that these people said that I should do, and like go to school and like go to college and all this shit. And I started realizing I was into film and like psychology a lot more. So I'd like go and shoot like little films with my friends, and we get ripped apart, and then we would like post them online or whatever, and then
that's the worst part.
Internet trolls, man.
That's the worst part.
Yeah. So going back to you though, you're talking about how your dad was an artist as well, and he kind of was coaching you through that time as well.
So my dad's a tattoo artist, and
sweet.
He has always been doing things that like other people don't really like to do, and he always like sticks to like what he likes to do. And if someone doesn't like that, he'll just keep going through it. He'll just drive right through it. And that's like one thing I really like look up to him as well, as whatever people say, or like whatever like people look at you and what you're doing, and they're like biting it, or like they're like ripping on your steez for it. He doesn't really let it affect him as much. And I like really like took that from him, and like just owned the trait that I chose to do.
Yeah.
And So my first, like the first couple months into grade 11, I got my first DJ gig, and that was at like my friend, like one of his friends' birthday parties above the Habitat, like in the lounge. And I prepared probably for like I had 2 weeks to prepare for it, and honestly, I was the most nervous I've ever been in my life. I
Yeah.
kept a straight face.
Oh,
I was like had no emotion whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it was like all the music festival people were there, like everyone that goes to like Shambhala, Base Coast, etc. Were all there.
Okay.
And I got up there and I literally looked up and everyone was looking at me and I almost cried. I was like, I can't even do this.
Wow.
And I had like an original plan, and then like I saw the DJs prior, and I was like, oh man, my stuff doesn't really go with that. So I tried to like switch it up last minute.
Oh no.
And I like kept it going for like 20 minutes. Everyone was like really vibing. Then I switched one song, and like that, it's amazing how like one thing can like make a crowd drift apart. And like that was not fun for me. That was devastating watching like everyone just kind of like drift away, like go continue their conversations.
Yeah.
And I really took like a part of that and just like realizing how going into things really affects what happens in the outcome, because going in like tight, not like clenching everything, being super nervous,
rigid.
like rigid, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah.
You got to be relaxed and be comfortable and know that you have a strict plan what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I feel that's really essential to owning and doing like
100%,
great
man.
things.
I really think that, especially when it comes to anything artistic, because with DJing, it's very similar to with filmmaking. Like, a lot of the time when you go to a set or when you go to perform a set, you have a plan or you have an idea of what the night would ideally look like if you were to shoot it or if you were to perform it. But then shit goes wrong, or like all of a sudden you start playing a couple tracks and like no one really feels it. So you're like, fuck, well now I got to switch it up. Otherwise I'm going to lose everybody. And it's all about that like attention game. But I think that's really smart that you actually like took in consideration about like how you felt beforehand too, and like your body language. Cause that's very, very, very true. You can tell somebody who is a very like seasoned vet of what they're doing, because they're enjoying themselves on stage, but they're usually like pushing themselves. So it's like a little bit of a competition. But even when you're just starting to learn it, like you really should not be so like anxiety filled that you're like gonna throw up. Like I still get really anxious whenever I go to do something like a shoot a gig, fly my drone, whatever it is. But it's like a really exciting anxiety. It's not like a crippling anxiety. And I think that's something that a lot of people have to like differentiate, right? Like, are you super anxious to go to work, or are you super anxious to go and perform? And is it like a happy anxiety, or is it just like a really like dreadful anxiety? So was yours like kind of like an energetic anxiety, or was that just like a really rough time for you?
Well, I've always felt like no one will like what I do. I always feel like because I have a specific ear for things, I always feel like no one else is gonna really like that. So that was like that was a really big like worry for me. But it kind of turned out that like people actually really liked it, and people actually just like really enjoyed it, and I was really shocked by that, because I always feel whenever I do my worst job, people like the most, and I don't understand why that happens.
Can you explain that? How can you give me like an example of that? Like where you've performed your worst, but it's actually performed out like really good for you?
Yeah. So I actually had a gig a couple weeks ago at Craft downtown, like it's like
the
right across from
eatery?
Sales.
Oh,
like
the
social
brewery?
market or whatever.
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
I went snowboarding all day. I was exhausted. I didn't really want to do it, so I went there, and like my intentions were good, but I was like, all right, let's see what happens here. It was my first time there, and I brought all my equipment. I waited, and they're like, okay, we'll take you here. And then they like put me on a table about 4 feet wide.
Oh, whoa.
And I have like my equipment and my laptop, and I was like, you've got to be joking.
Yeah, that's
I was like, this,
tiny.
you're serious. And I was like, oh, okay. So I plugged it all in, and the speakers there weren't the greatest. And my music just wasn't matching, and I just wasn't like, I was exhausted, and it just wasn't really flowing. And then at the end of the night, it was a hard crowd to read, because it was like people above 50 and then like
Yeah.
people above like under 25. It was really strange.
Yeah.
There was no middle ground and no one was
Whoa.
showing any emotion.
Damn.
So
That's Kelowna for you.
yeah. Yeah. So I was like really lost. So then after the fact, I was packing up my stuff and the two managers came to me. They're like, "You did it great." And I was like, "Really?" Like I couldn't even hardly hear the music. And like,
Yeah. Wow.
I was like not beat matching whatsoever. And they're like, no, like it was great. But like, they're like, yeah, it's a very tough crowd to read. And like people are saying that like it was a great music selection. I was like, oh, sweet. And that was just more recent. So I know more of it, but I've been in certain situations definitely where
Yeah.
like feeling going into it not with like the most strongest intentions and not really being stoked because it's not like a huge stage or something. It's just like in a restaurant or whatever.
Right.
And like going in with not the strongest like confidence.
Yeah.
And then
And
good
just killing
outcome.
it.
Yeah, a good outcome.
That's awesome, man. I think that's like, it's a really good way to stay humbled almost, you know? I think a lot of the time too, I turn down some gigs that I think are too small, or I think that like it would take me so much time to do and it would just be like exhausting. But those ones honestly end up being like some of the best that I've worked with. And that's kind of like what moves your career up, because you never know, like somebody could own a business or like some kind of crazy fucking
Connections
thing.
are everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, hey man, I like your shit. Come perform.
Exactly.
That's dope, man. So grade 9, grade 10 was rough for you.
Yeah. That was kind of like focusing more strongly into it. Yeah.
Right. So how did you kind of get out of that or get over that, like the fear of, or not even like the fear, but just like getting over what other people think of you? And then how did you kind of really start like performing going forward? Because you've performed recently like Shambhala.
Yeah.
And I really want to talk about that going forward and stuff, because you've had like some really sick gigs.
Yeah. So after the fact of doing the Habitat, DJ Invisible, Kevin Moore, really, I sent him a Facebook message saying, hey, let's get together. Let's DJ sometime. I want to learn some stuff from you. And he sent me a message about 20 minutes later saying like, you want to make like $350-$400 tonight? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, like I can get you in DJing at Cactus tonight for New Year's Eve. And I was like, oh, sweet.
Yeah.
And I texted my dad. My dad's like, what? That's sick.
Yeah.
So then I went there, brought all my equipment, had some girls come out from where I worked, and they were like that really helped me, like, because they were like really strong supportive of me. So
yeah. I mean, having girls with you when you roll in is definitely a confidence boost, man.
Exactly. So that like kind of like boosted my confidence with that.
Yeah.
And I just kind of like, I just had fun with it. And like that was at Cactus Club downtown, and it kind of, it made me more comfortable being in that position, because besides me dancing in my bedroom, like that was like before the Habitat and all that, that's like the Cactus Club was like really like more in front of like people and like feeling the emotion. I feel like I still DJ Cactus Club to this day, and I still feel like that one, like DJing there, it may just be like Cactus Club or a restaurant or whatever, but I feel like being in the center of the restaurant where the DJ table was and feeling like the 360 emotions of everyone and like feeling the vibes of everything was like very helpful.
Yeah.
And like seeing people's facial expressions or their like voices go louder and their like conversations are louder, or they come up to me and request stuff. Like I feel that was very helpful. Like owning.
Yeah. And like really honing in your skills, right?
Yeah,
And like
exactly.
honing in the set.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think that's so key, like getting that feedback from everybody. And it's so hard at a young age, because either people will hate you and they won't say anything, which is the worst possible scenario.
Exactly, yeah.
Or they'll think you're okay, or they'll like you, but they'll overhype. And it's just like, well, which one is it? Like, do you really not like me, or do you like me? And it's really nice to have that kind of middle ground where some people are like, yo, this is sick, but could you play this? Or like, then you don't get all these like opinions. It's all of a sudden like you get a lot more of like a concrete idea of like what people actually want to hear.
Absolutely.
Like, that's some sweet emotion. Fuck yeah, man. So you would say that like that New Year's Eve kind of party and that performance at Cactus was what changed your mind and gave you a lot more confidence going forward?
Absolutely.
Hell yeah, man. That's awesome, man. That's really good to hear. Like, I think that it's a lot about just trial until you find that one or two like sets or gigs that just like change the whole game for you, man.
Yeah.
I've had the same thing, dude. That's fucking awesome to hear, dude. So after that, where did you go from there?
So my dad has been an art director for the main stage at Shambhala for the last like 13 years, and he just stopped doing it for the last couple.
Yeah.
And So we kind of like he established himself like on that on the grounds there, and our family friend Robbie, like he is the director for the main stage, which is the pagoda stage, and he knew I'd been DJing, but like didn't really take it very seriously. And for last year's festival, and about like same time last year, we were talking to him on the phone, and we were like, my dad really wanted to take me to like experience it versus Center of Gravity.
Yeah.
He wanted like to see where he went to party.
Right.
And we were on the phone with him, and where he's like, my dad was trying to figure out how to get there because it's a 19 plus festival, how I would get in. And Robbie's saying like, oh, like he has to like get a fake ID, or like we'll sneak him in the vehicle or something like that of sorts. And we're like, my dad's an honesty is the best policy kind of person. So we didn't really want to do that. And so we kind of like just sat on it for a couple days. And then my dad and I sat down and talked. We're like, why don't we just ask him if you can DJ there? And I was like, kind of shooting a little high. And I was like, I guess so. So my dad sent him a Facebook message saying, why doesn't Colt play? And then messages back about a day later and says, I got an opening slot for Saturday to open the stage. And I was like, he's like, you want to take that? And I was like, yeah. So I got that. And I like, my dad kept it a secret for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't confirmed, but I was asked what I wanted my DJ name to be. And I was like, I just got harassed for the last 3 years for being Colt 45. I didn't know what to do. And I was like, I got so many silly names for ideas. Yeah. And for some reason, I went with Colt with a period at the end. Yeah. In all caps. And I was like, that looks dope. So then 2 weeks later, the roster came out for the Pagoda stage. My name was on there. Okay. And I literally was on the bus home when that came out, and I saw it, and I literally cried on the bus. And I was like, I cannot believe that just happened. I was like, sick. That's unreal. Yeah, man. And that like thinking about it, it just gives me goosebumps still. Yeah. And that kind of like just kept me going for months until August, and that helped me boost my like creativity and my emotions for myself and my I don't know how to word it, but like my self-esteem essentially. Yeah. To like DJing and like owning it. Absolutely. And yeah, ever since I made that Instagram post that I was playing there, people kind of clued in, but still like kids my age don't know like what Shambhala really is. Right. I mean, I don't even know what Shambhala is. Yeah, you gotta experience it. Yeah. But they were like, "Oh, that's a big festival." And they're like, "Maybe he's doing something dope. Maybe he's doing dope shit." And I was like, I kind of just sat back and watched. I had a little bit of egotistical moments, but that's I mean, you gotta. We all have it. Yeah, dude. But 100%. That was an incredible moment to put on, and I would say from there, that's when I knew what I was going to do for my career. Right. Was when I was put on that, I saw my name on there. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. Fuck yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Mm-hmm. And that's what you've done ever since, hey? Yeah. Hell yeah, dude. I really love that. I really want to chat a little bit about your mindset about that whole thing, right? So, lots of kids are not doing anything, and like they're not really like focused on wanting to do that. And when I say when I say do that, I mean like push themselves to a point where they're like uncomfortably comfortable with releasing whatever it is, and like whether it be art or just going out in the world and like figuring out who they are. So many people are not comfortable with that. And I'd really like to kind of get into your mindset about like your ideas around that. And if you have any like philosophies that you kind of live by. You are still very young, but like I would love to hear any of this. I think this is really cool. So like I would say my style of DJing is I like mainly stick to house music, but I'm in high school still, so I can like see what like the younger crowd really likes. So I kind of dip my fingers in that, and then I also like watch a lot of like DJ sets on YouTube. Sweet. And like kind of like listen to their track lists, and like I really pay attention, or I'll have a Spotify radio on. Yeah. And I'll be like just like going through like walking to the bus or whatever, or like in school or whatever, just going through like just listening to songs. I'm like, oh, that sounds dope. And I really like 80s synth music.
Yeah.
And like the old synths like Bonnie
I like that
M
shit too,
and like
man.
Alphaville. That's like I really and that's like what I really like to like. I like the feeling of that music.
Yeah.
So, and people nowadays don't really like listen to it, but when it comes on, they're like, "Oh, what's that?" And
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's
Like,
people
oh,
like
fuck yeah,
gets
dude.
people nodding their head, and
Grooving.
yeah. So I mix like old music as well into my sets. I also mix in like house music and then like old like hip hop, and since learning on to like learning on Technique 1200s, like I know a couple scratches.
Nice.
So I toss those in there too. But
Yeah,
yeah, I don't stick to one genre.
Yeah.
I mix it all together because there's nothing worse than going to a DJ set and hearing the same for an hour and a half straight. I don't like that. It gets
Very true.
irritating.
Yeah.
So I mix it up, and I don't like to like keep the same rhythm. I like to switch it up, slow it down, speed it up, whatever.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. What's kind of like your main driver that you think about when you go into like creating music or whatever? Like, do you want to, and like not to be harsh or whatever, but like, would you like to make money with it? Would you like to be famous with it? Would you like to be just like really well known, or do you do it just because like you really just have to do it and like there's nothing else? Like, I would love to hear a little bit about that.
The reason I do it is because I feel I like to go onto a stage and it be dead silent, and I put a song on and people go nuts. I just like how I have dreams and I have like mirages of it, and I just feel like so many DJs nowadays do it for the money. They're like, or they have like ghostwriters that do it, and I just like, I know I can do a better job, and I know I can like show up and give it 110%. And I feel like a lot of people nowadays just half-ass it, and I know I can go up there and rock it. So
Sweet.
yeah, that's
Hell yeah.
it's not really for the money. I just kind of like the lifestyle.
Yeah.
I also don't drink as well, so
That's fucking awesome, man.
yeah, so I don't really like the party side of it.
Yeah. You don't seem like the party type.
No.
Like you know how to enjoy a party, but you don't like
Exactly.
The party.
I've been to I've been to like 5 or 6 parties in the last 3 years.
Yeah. That's good.
So,
Fuck, man. That's
yeah,
like,
so-
that's really good.
Yeah, it's kind of more of the vibe, I guess.
Yeah.
It sounds cliche, but
No, yeah, just in like
Yeah.
2018,
Yeah,
2019, the
yeah.
vibe, man. I'm
vibe,
feeling
man.
the vibe. I feel that though. I totally understand what you're saying. I'm a lot of the same way. Like I don't really go out to parties very much. I'm like very awkward in those situations because it's like a lot of people just being sad and drinking and like not really wanting to do anything. And I much prefer doing things like this too, like getting to know and like understand people better. Yeah, that's super cool. I really think what you're doing and like how you're pushing forward is gonna like be super cool, and I'm like really excited to see some of the things you do.
Yeah.
Okay, man. I have a couple more questions for you,
Absolutely.
and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
My first question is, do you kind of feel like you are a little bit on the outside and like on the fringes when it comes to living your life?
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
always
eh?
feel undermined.
Yeah.
Because everyone just feels that you just plug in a couple things and you press a couple buttons, but like honestly, it's a lot harder than that. I feel like you can shift the mood in a room like instantly with a song or two, and then like the strongest part of DJing I feel is seeing like what people resonate with and what they want to listen to, and reading that and then putting it out into music is like, if you got that, you can master the craft.
Yeah. 100%, dude. I feel that. It's a lot of it's just a lot about understanding the room and like having like that power to be able to like you said, change the room.
And of course you always have to have confidence with it too, because you can't go up there and be like on a whim and be like, oh, maybe this will work. You have to be like, no, this is gonna work and people are gonna like it.
Yeah.
That's my mindset, like 24/7. This is
Nice.
what people are gonna listen to. This is what people are gonna like. And I feel like with that mindset you can do anything.
Yeah, dude, and that's gonna be fucking hard to maintain for the longest time. But if you can keep that, that's golden. That's like that's very much golden, because there are always gonna be people that will fuck with your stuff, and always people that really really like your stuff, and there's obviously the opposite, people that don't like it as much and like don't want to mess with it. Yeah, man. I also think that like being on the outside, you understand people a little bit more because you're seeing how they interact with each other, but you're also
Observing
seeing,
too.
yeah, dude, it's just a lot about observing. So I feel that for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a lot of what this brand is and like this whole podcast is about, right? It's like bringing these like really uncommon people together, sit for a little bit and just like discuss a little bit about how they see the world too.
Absolutely.
So thinking about the future and stuff, how do you kind of see the world going into like 2019, 2020? Like what are your ideas and visions around like not only being a DJ, but like kind of like the state of music that it's in right now?
I feel like the new playground for teenagers and adults nowadays is music festivals. That's like every single time you go on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, there's always a new festival popping up, and then you're like, what? Like that's a thing? And I feel like
Fireside 2.0.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's like that's where people. I feel like for like the baby boomers era and like the generation, I don't know, Generation X or whatever. Like our parents and stuff. I feel like they're so uptight and they like do their 9 to 5 jobs. They do their things on the weekend. But I feel like nowadays people are like, you can make a living off of YouTube. You can like make a living off of like eating in front of a camera. Like you can do anything you want to do to make money or like to live and sustain for yourself. And I feel like people are expressing themselves more. And like with that in mind, music festivals, there's never like, you see the craziest outfits ever. And I feel like the greatest thing about music festivals is people being themselves and like just expressing who they are. And no one judges them because everyone else is doing what they want to do. Yeah. And I feel like it's just open ground. And they want to experiment with some stuff, go ahead. But like there's music there. People like you'll look next to someone, they'll be vibing and you just go like, hey, and you introduce yourself and like and then you guys have a similarity and then you're friends.
Yeah. It takes off from there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome, man. I think that's like really cool too. And that's what I'm excited about with art is like a lot of what we're going towards is it's been so competition based because people think you come into this industry, especially in film, and they're always like trying to compete with you on price or whatever. But then they starve themselves out because like there's always going to be somebody that will be willing to pay your price and like
absolutely
be willing to fuck with you so that you can support them in the fact of like giving them music or DJ or like things to like escape. And in turn, they'll just like give you some attention and maybe some money. And like, that's always how art's worked. Yeah. So like having the internet open to that is just like makes it so much easier. Cause now you can drop a track and maybe like a couple 100,000 people could listen to it. Yeah. And that just like changes your life to create more and more music and like really continue doing it.
Yeah. I wouldn't really like even classify myself as a DJ. I would just like classify myself as like, I would say actually DJ, but there's a difference between people plugging in and having the same set over and over again versus people that change everything up and know what's hot or like know what's up and coming and knowing what to play at the right time. That's key. Yeah. Knowing what to play at the right time.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's all about the timing, man. All about the timing.
Yeah.
For sure, dude. Okay. Couple more questions.
Absolutely.
I have one question for the young kids or just like people, not even young kids, just like people who are out there, even if they are 50 or older, and they're listening to this and they're like, I resonate a little bit with you. Like I really like, I struggle with getting over what people think of me or just like really wanting to like pursue my artistic craft. What advice or like what, I guess like piece, like what little tidbit would you give them to help them out?
Well, like I always listen to teenagers complaining about their life, like how their parents want to send them off to university or college. And everyone asks me like, what are you going to do? I'm like, you know what I'm going to do. And they're like, okay, fair enough. And I'm like, if you like something and it brings you joy and it brings the people you love joy and you both like it and it's a shared like embryo of like, just like enjoyment and love. And if you can do that for a living, go do it. If you can be confident and if you can live off of it, or even if you can't even live off of it, if you have to do it on the weekends or you have to do it after you're done work or before work, just do it. You find something that you really like to do and just do it. And if like you really like to do it, someone else will also like to do it. So you can always, I feel, it may not be in your community or whatever, but the internet is expanding by the second. So
there's a lot of communities.
You can reach out and find someone that is also on the same wavelength as you.
100%, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Fuck yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming
Absolutely.
onto the podcast, my man. Tell the world what's going on with you. Are you dropping any new tracks?
Yeah,
and, where we can follow you.
I'm like establishing myself as a producer for right now. I changed my name from Colt to Krispy Colt.
Nice.
Everyone, I don't even get called my biological name anymore. I just get called Crispy everywhere I go.
That's how it goes, bro.
My teachers call me Crispy. It's on my report cards.
Nice. Oh no way.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
I'll be walking.
Yo,
in the hall.
you better have an album or at least like a mix trap with just like or mixtape with just like your report card and just like Krispy Colt on top. That would be fucking iconic, man.
Yeah,
That'd be sick.
Yeah, and honestly, just like taking like what we said today, just the biggest thing I feel right now is kids feel like they need to go into university or like they feel like they need to do what their parents need to say. Like, fuck that. Just do what you want to do. And if your parents aren't behind that, like that's their issues. They're holding on to something that they don't want to let go on. And I feel like you need to do what you want to do because it's your life, not theirs.
100%, man.
Yeah.
That's an awesome way to end it. Thank you so much, man.
Absolutely.
Toss up some of your socials and we'll make sure to follow you, give you a like, and keep going. And like, fuck yeah, dude. I'm really excited for like to watch you grow and to like watch you produce more and more because you've already done so much amazing things. And even being on stage and on Shambhala, that confidence boost and like that feeling that you get, like I can tell that's like the life, that's the catalyst to your career. Because I've had one of those too, and it's an amazing feeling. Keep pushing, man. It's gonna get hard, but like you're doing really dope stuff.
Thank you.
Really dope stuff. So toss up your socials and
so everything's basically HTML, whatever, / Krispy Colt. Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, Deezer, Tidal, etc. All those social streaming platforms. I'm on there. Krispy Colt, and then the Krispies with a K, Colts with a K, because that's how we roll.
Yeah,
and keep it crispy.
Hell yeah, dude. I like it. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching this podcast. We are really, really trying to release more and more things. But it's just been a really, really crazy couple weeks. I've had some family in the hospital. And I've also been going down to vacation next couple weeks. Take a week off. I haven't had a vacation in about 5 years. So
deserve it.
Yeah, man. Just like I really don't like it, but I think I need just like a week of it. Yeah. So I'm excited for it, man. But nonetheless, we are continuing with the podcast. We're continuing with all the great things coming. So I'm hoping we can just inspire one or two of you to become that uncommon person that you know you can be. So keep listening, keep watching until we can help inspire you to do it your fucking self. Thank you so much for watching. Be yourself. Yeah. And we love you, bro. Take it easy, guys.
See ya.